Member of Parliament for Mathare is still here with me, Anthony Oluoch. Did you expect that?
Well, yes, I did. I did expect that. Looking at what happens after the handshake, it was important that we tone down political temperatures, and it's noteworthy that the same time last year when the president came, you remember he had a house where there were whistles and catcalls and all manner of jeering. And so coming to the house with almost complete unanimity about the need for that handshake and people saying the handshake was a good thing. The apology itself was trite, it was proper. I think it was something that was expected. He could have done a little more. I think in terms of saying, other than the apology, we stepped on each other's toes, and the state itself was the biggest culprit in terms of who stepped on whose toes.
All right.
We said a lot of things ourselves that may have offended a number of ethos, but you remember nearly 300 people died as a result of violence during and after the elections. Right. A number of people were maimed, including myself, and I think the president could have spoken to the question. I apologize to baby Samantha, the family, and many other people who probably weren't even involved in this but got caught up in the crossfire. He owes them an apology, but I think the apology was in order.
All right. We just want also to just get the views of some Kenyans. This time around from Nyandarua, we'll come back to hear more and discuss more, but let's just hear what they had to say about the president's remarks yesterday.
The president has actually talked about so many issues, and all of them, I think, in my part and my analysis, has been crowned by the issue of reconciliation. The spirit of reconciliation that actually he has portrayed was something really good. To talk about people expanding the handshake, and especially when he called on the members of parliament to also extend that handshake. To me, it felt like when Jesus appeared to his disciples and told them, let there be peace. So it was about peace. All the issues that the president has talked about can only be actualized and realized if there is peace in the country.
Tumeona rais akiweza kumuita mheshimiwa Babu Owino, kumsalimia, kuweza kuwaza pamoja na yeye. Lile ni jambo nzuri sana kwa mzazi, kwa mtoto wake. Mtoto akifanya makosa, baba huita mtoto, anamwambia hapo ulikosea. Leo rais amekuwa baba zaidi ya kuwa rais wa nchi hii. Alipoita babu pale kando akamsalimia, hiyo ameoneshana ni mzazi mzuri sana ambaye anajua mtoto akikosea, katika Biblia inavyosema, hafai kutapwa, hafai kuuawa, zaidi anafaa kuitwa eleze makosa yake, atubu dhambi zake ili azidi kusamehewa na aishi vyema.
Nataka kuchukua nafasi hii nimshukuru rais wetu kwa vile ameonekana yeye ni mkakamavu na ni mtu mwenye vitendo. Yeye alianzia na kusalimiana na aliyekuwa waziri mkuu, na hiyo jambo likatuonyesha kidhahiri kwamba yeye anataka nchi yetu iwe na amani na ndio aweze kuongoza nchi hii yetu.
All right, so those are just some of the residents in Nyandarua also just giving their thoughts to do with yesterday's address. Coming back to you, Anthony, what will be the impact of this particular apology? Is it as easy as, we hear thank you very much for the apology and then we move on, considering that many people, who lost their lives. There are people who lost family, friends. There are families, that broke because, the wife supported, a different party from the husband. There are friends who became foes. So what more should be done, and what will be the impact of what happened yesterday?
A lot more needs to be done. Otherwise, the handshake will end up being just that, a handshake from one great man called Raila Odinga and another great man called Uhuru. You look back 3-4 years back, after the TJRC report was released, the president did something which people thought was very good. He apologized on behalf of previous governments and said, a lot of injustice was meted upon people, and I apologize. But people expected a lot more than that. That report still gathers dust somewhere in the shelves, in Parliament, or wherever it is. So a lot more needs to be done. He has done the first big step. I think he needs to move towards telling us What happens to people who lost lives? I know there are people who lost properties. How are we going to insulate them against this? I'm thinking also about the apology that is owed. Matiba may not have been part of what happened during this, but you remember there's been an apology that was issued to Matiba and I think Orengo, it is, who said that we need to be ashamed. We need to apologize to the wife and the family for all those years, and his life was changed and lost as a result of the Nyayo era detention. So I think this government owes it, even as we have that apology tendered, to explain why a compensation that was awarded by court of over $500 million shillings has not been paid to date. And that will set an example of the people who lost lives during post-election violence. A compensation package or framework ought to be put in place so that the apology actually does mean more than just the word apologize.
All right. What is now the responsibility that Raila Odinga also has? Well, Uhuru Kenyatta said that even Raila had offered that hand, and even we've seen a message from the Deputy William Ruto. It's okay if we have all these messages, great messages of apologies, but what also should we expect from the other leaders apart from Uhuru Kenyatta?
Yes, you saw the president asked members of parliament and said, you know, it's not only me who said wrong things. So he asked members of parliament, please join me. And then I think I heard him to be saying, other than the big 4 issues he talked about, that I will be looking at you as members of parliament to be able to put in place the supporting framework to be able to actualize this. And that brings me to the next concern, that what next after the handshake?
Right.
You know, the honeymoon period for this was a good thing, the full feel-good factor, it will melt, just like chocolate or candy in your mouth. We need to know, between now and 2022, if there will be need to put a framework. There are people who've said it is not anchored in law. So what is this about this 14-member team? Is it going to be gazetted? Are they going to be anchored in a certain piece of legislation? How will whatever they bring on board in terms of the dialogue be brought into the proper institutions? Right. What is the connection now between the proper institution that actually needs to put this in frame? There is a question of acceptability. There are people who said, can we have youth in there? Can we have the face of Kenya included there? And then anchor it in form of a proper dialogue. The last time we had anything that changed the constitution, we had the Bomas framework. Before that, we had the CKRC framework that brought us together around the table, and it was a structured way of doing this. So either this group goes around and collects views and then makes recommendations and say, let's have a Bomas 2 or a Bomas 3. Time-wise, I am thinking that we do not have a lot of time, because otherwise we will end up having too much politicking and referendum too close to the election. This needs to be done before the end of 2019, in my view. So I would recommend that the committee takes no less than 3 months, go around, collect views, proposes a framework, whether it's a select committee of the joint houses or a Bomas 2 or a Bomas 3.
All right.
Then we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We have the Bomas draft and the structure that was recommended in the executive, and that I think is the elephant in the house. If you look at all the things they've said, there are 2 things that stand out for me that they must deal with urgently if they don't deal with anything else. The question about the structure of the executive, should we retain the pre-presidential or parliamentary? Because a lot of the tension and the fight before and after the election is about this structure does not serve us. Too many people, too many communities feel excluded. And then there is the issue of exclusivity in other aspects and employment and opportunities in government. So the other issues about devolution, even though there were issues flagged out, I feel we have structures, we have Council of Governors, they're able to thrash out that. The Constitution at Article 6 talks about cooperation between the 2 arms of government. There are institutions and structures that could... So we could lend our support through the handshake and say, strengthen it more. But it is not something I expect them to spend time on. I also don't expect them to spend too much time on security. The government has structured and things in place that can deal and strengthen and tighten issues with security.
All right.
The elephant in the house and the time limited, they need to focus on two things. Relook the structure of the executive and look at the question of inclusivity or in the absent exclusivity. Let's go to the Bomas draft as a point of reference and the Okoa draft, which never made it to the IEBC.
All right.
Yeah.
I also want us to, because time is not on our side, I also just want to hear from you. There are Kenyans who felt that he did not address some of the issues that are closer to them. Fine, they say, yes, it was great that, he brought about the conversation to do with reconciliation and healing. But, what about, unemployment? Because that's one of the things that, young people were waiting to hear. Okay, so what plans do you have for, for the young people, millions of them who have completed university, have master's degrees, but still do not have a job?
Yeah, that is true. I think in terms of achievement, he spoke about the last mile connectivity on electricity, talked about infrastructure. But I think if you look at the Jubilee manifesto, they must have promised X number of jobs in manufacturing and other industries. So he did not speak about, this is what we achieved. We promised X number of jobs, we achieved this. What I had him to be saying is that in the Big Four, one of the key issues in the Big Four, other than universal health care and the issue of housing, was a question of manufacturing.
Right.
No time frame was given, and I don't think I had him to be saying we'll do X number of jobs. But he said he's looking up to the parliament and necessary legislations in order to be able to try and actualize this. So you're right. If you're looking at the Big Four, they are good grand ideas. But I think in terms of how much did they achieve before, he did not say in terms of employment opportunities. And then in terms of manufacturing, he did also not say in the next 1 year, you will see 10 million jobs, 20 million jobs.
Right.
Same way they talk about 10,000 kilometers of roads, last mile connectivity. We don't have any statistics about how much jobs they created and what they intend to create in the next 1, 2, or 3 years.
Could you say that maybe was a miss?
Yes, it is. Yeah. It is a miss, and I think it is deliberate, because I don't think that the Jubilee government itself has generated proper jobs. We had Kazi kwa Vijana, and I think the thing helped as a stopgap, but we need middle-level jobs, people who've gone to school, they have some form of training, things that they can do and, make a living out of, be able to sustain themselves, buy a house, do this or the other. The Kazi kwa Vijana thing needs to be brought back, because in places like Mathare constituency, in Kibera and other places, we have people who probably haven't gone to school, and this kind of puts them off the streets, crime and insecurity. So I think one of the things we need to do is to have a fund put in place where we will be able to have a proper, structured way of getting people to do, casual jobs that keep them off the streets, as we work on the long-term manufacturing jobs.
All right. Yeah. Let's also hear the sentiments of residents from Baringo. Let's hear what they had to say about the address yesterday. All right, so we'll be having the reactions in a few minutes, but also, all right, so let's just hear them then.
The president is supposed to outline progress made and how he's supposed to realize the issues of national values and international obligations. And when you listen to the president speaking today, he was heavy on the issue of promoting national unity and cohesion, and he spoke at length towards that and giving more emphasis on the handshake and the aftermath. And he extended it further, even asking the members of parliament to shake hands and have a moment of talking to each other and really bring the nation together. So the focus mainly has been on the unity aspect and national cohesion.
Na vile rais aliongea siku ya leo ni mzuri kwa uwiano ya taifa, mimi nasema hongera kwa hiyo. Hiyo handshake ilifanywa na Raila Amolo Odinga, hiyo ni excellent. Hiyo mambo ya security ni sawa, lakini kuna mahali in Baringo County, if we talk of insecurity, sisi bado tuko na shida kati ya castle rustling between East Baringo, Bogot and Tugen. Specifically, wacha kusema Tugen is bigger than, but we are saying Baringo not at large. We are in problem, tumepata shida, kwa East Baringo Bogot.
There are some aspects which we felt that the president could have spoken about, but he didn't speak about them, or maybe he didn't address them in depth. The first one is on the prevailing issue of environmental conservation. We've had a very strong national conversation around the issue of maintaining our tree cover, expanding it to meet the constitutional threshold of 10%, but that didn't come out very clearly, and that could be linked also with the issue of the ongoing floods in the country, because it has an environmental link. So that one didn't come out very strongly. There is the aspect of devolution, which also did not receive a lot of emphasis by the president.
Bila amani nchi, hiyo si nchi. Na vile hao walikutana na Raila na kusikizana, tunasema amen. Haleluya. Hakuna kitu kingine mzuri kushinda amani. Mambo ya bila hata ukusa forest. Na forest alisemekana 90 days. Na 90 days mimi naona kama imekwisha. Na hii 90 days itakwisha lini? Na nchi kama Marikat, Kariobale, ambayo hausiki na mambo ya porosti, ili apektajaji mpaka watu hata kuni apati aliapektenaji.
I pray that all of us will spend the days and weeks after this address repairing the bonds that frayed last year. Let us each apologize for our words and for the anger and malice that Kenyans heard. From Mandera to Maseno, from Bita to Mvita, from Lodwar to Lungalunga, let us shake hands and embrace our neighbors. Oh, very good.
All right, that's an interesting handshake between Babu Owino and President Uhuru Kenyatta. Your thoughts on, I'm sure we've talked about the handshake for some time now, but also as we wind up the conversation, Anthony, I'd like to hear from you. From the speech, do you feel like maybe there's a disconnection? Because when you hear the residents on the ground, some of them want different things from what, the government and what the president really is agitating for.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he could have done a little bit more, like I said, about issues affecting them on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
But also, I think you get the sense from people that the country was tearing apart. So the peace was okay, but that's just that. We need to also talk about what affects them. I've had one of the residents, I think, from Baringo saying, we didn't hear the president talking about the disaster we have. We have a lot of people faced by floods, from different parts of the country.
Yes.
In terms of disaster management, the government needs to address itself to this issue. I don't think he said anything about that. We have issues about water shortage. We have excess of rain, but we don't have access to water. We are being told about Ndakaini and Ndakaini not being filled in spite of the rains. There's now talk about some 2 private dams. I don't know how true that is. So there are questions that he could have addressed. I'm not thinking myself that he was disconnected as such, but I think he ought to have leveraged a little bit more 2 or 3 issues that connect to the ordinary mwananchi.
Ordinary mwananchi. All right, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you coming back on the show. Hopefully we'll be seeing you more and more times. Hopefully. And it's great to see you in good health. The last time, you were part of the struggle,
We paid the price.
But it's great to have you back fit and healthy. All right, so we have been speaking to Mathare North Member of Parliament, Anthony Oluoch, of course, just delving deeper and doing a post-mortem of that address yesterday by President Uhuru Kenyatta.